Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a village. Not just any village, but one where the sun casts golden shadows across humble dwellings, where laughter echoes between houses made of clay and straw, where life flows like the gentle stream that runs alongside it. In this village, our story begins. In a village nestled between rolling hills and vast open skies lived a girl named Zara. Zara wasn't just beautiful. She possessed the kind of beauty that made the morning glories pause before blooming, as if waiting for her to wake first. Her smile could coax the sun from behind the stormiest clouds, and her gentle touch seemed to heal the world around her. Zara's father, Tarek, was a farmer whose hands told stories of hard work and resilience. Each day, he would rise before the sun, his silhouette a familiar shadow against the pink dawn as he made his way to fields that rarely yielded enough. Yet he never complained, finding joy in the simple miracle of seeds becoming sustenance. Her mother, Adina, was a market trader whose clever hands could transform simple beads into exquisite jewelry, or weave baskets so tight they could hold water. On market days, her melodious voice would rise above the bustle as she bartered and bargained, ensuring her family had what they needed. Can you feel the warmth of their home, the love flowing between them like an invisible current? Perhaps you're beginning to hear the sounds of the village, to smell the earth after rain. Despite their poverty, Zara's family shared a wealth many never know, a profound love that made their small hut feel like a palace. In the evenings, they would sit together under the vast expanse of stars, sharing stories and dreams that cost nothing but meant everything. Zara walked to school each day with her small group of friends, their feet creating dusty patterns on the well-worn path. Among them all, Zara's intelligence shone the brightest. She absorbed knowledge the way the parched earth drinks rain, completely, gratefully, transforming with each drop. Zara, her teacher would say each week, eyes crinkling with pride, "You continue to be our brightest star." Then he would present her with a small token, perhaps a smooth stone with interesting markings or a piece of colored chalk. To Zara, these were treasures beyond measure. The villagers watched her grow with collective pride. "That girl," they would whisper, "she carries our hopes with her. One day, she will bring great honor to our village." And Zara, hearing these words, would stand a little taller, dream a little bigger. As you continue reading this story, you might notice how your breathing has naturally slowed, how your mind has begun to create vivid pictures of Zara and her world. That's right. Allow yourself to sink deeper into the narrative, to become part of this village, to walk alongside Zara as her story unfolds. The friend who carried shadows as Zara entered. Her final year of school, her circle of friends shifted like sand in the wind. She found herself increasingly drawn to a girl named Lyra. Unlike Zara, Lyra wasn't academically gifted. Her beauty wasn't the kind that inspired poetry, but there was something magnetic about her. Lyra moved through the world as if she knew secrets others didn't. Her confidence a cloak she wore regardless of circumstance. The other village girls noticed this new friendship with concern in their eyes. "Be careful with Lyra," they would warn Zara, voices hushed. "She walks paths that lead to dangerous places." But Zara, whose heart had always been open to seeing the good in others, would simply smile and shake her head. "Everyone deserves a friend," she would reply, her loyalty already taking root. One particularly difficult morning, Zara arrived at school with hunger gnawing at her stomach. The harvest had been poor, and there had been nothing for breakfast. The emptiness inside her made concentrating on lessons nearly impossible, the teacher's words seeming to float around her without meaning. Then, as if summoned by her need, Lyra appeared beside her desk, two steaming plates balanced carefully in her hands. The aroma of spiced rice and beans made Zara's mouth water instantly. "I made this for you," Lyra said, her voice unusually soft. Because you're special to me." The gestures, so unexpected and perfectly timed, cemented their friendship in Zara's mind. From that moment, they became inseparable, their silhouettes a familiar pair against the village backdrop. Notice how your own memories of friendship might be surfacing now. Perhaps you too have experienced that moment when someone saw your need before you expressed it, that feeling of being truly seen. Remember it as we continue. After they completed school, Zara and Lyra spent even more time together. They would wander through the marketplace, examining colorful fabrics they couldn't afford, or sit by the river, dipping their toes in the cool water while sharing secrets and dreams. Zara couldn't help but notice that Lyra always seemed to have new things: a silver anklet one day, a silk scarf the next, sometimes even small coins to buy sweet treats they could share. The contrast between Lyra's apparent wealth and Zara's own worn clothes became increasingly stark. Finally, curiosity overcame her. "Lyra," she asked one evening as they sat watching the sunset paint the sky in impossible colors, "how do you afford these beautiful things? Your family isn't any wealthier than mine." Lyra glanced around, then leaned closer. Zara could smell the jasmine oil Lyra always dabbed behind her ears, could see the flecks of gold in her dark eyes. "I have a friend," Lyra whispered, her voice like silk. "His name is Kai. He gives me gifts, money, whatever I ask for." Zara's forehead creased with confusion. "But why would he do that? What do you give him in return?" Lyra's laugh was soft and knowing. "I give him my company, Zara. I spend nights with him, and he ensures I never want for anything." Zara felt her chest tighten, understanding blooming within her like a night flower. "But Lyra, isn't that dangerous? What if you became with child?" With a dismissive wave of her hand, Lyra replied, "I know how to prevent such things. It's really nothing to fear." Her eyes gleamed as she added, "And the rewards, Zara, they're worth everything." Zara felt herself standing at a crossroads, though. Her feet remained still. Something deep within her whispered warnings. But Lyra's confidence was hypnotic, her lifestyle seductive in its apparent simplicity, and so Zara said nothing, choosing instead to preserve their friendship even as seeds of uncertainty took root in her heart. Sometimes in life we stand at such crossroads. Perhaps you're remembering a time when you felt this pull between what feels right and what seems easy. Allow that memory to surface, then let it go as we continue following Zara's journey. One morning, as dawn painted the sky in hues of pink and gold, Zara was making her way to Lyra's home when she encountered a young man named Jabari. Everyone in the village knew of Jabari. He was a palm wine tapper whose skill was legendary. The wine he produced was said to taste of sunshine and distant dreams, sweet on the tongue with just enough bite to remind you it was real. Jabari wasn't only known for his craft. His kindness was spoken of just as often, the way he would help elderly villagers carry heavy loads, or how he always gave extra measures to families celebrating births or mourning losses. When their paths crossed that morning, Jabari's smile seemed to illuminate the space between them. They spoke of simple things: the weather, the upcoming harvest festival, the new well being dug near the school. Yet something in the way he looked at her made ordinary words feel like poetry. Before they parted ways, Jabari reached into the small pouch tied at his waist. From it, he withdrew a tiny wooden box carved with intricate patterns. "For you, Zara," he said, his voice rich as honey. "I saw these and thought of the stars reflected in your eyes." Inside the box lay a pair of earrings, small, perfectly formed crescents that seemed to capture moonlight even in the brightness of day. Zara gasped, touched by the thoughtfulness of such a gift. "They're beautiful," she whispered, gratitude making her voice tremble slightly. "Thank you, Jabari." From that day forward, they began meeting regularly, sometimes by the great baobab tree at the village center, other times along the path to his farm. Jabari would bring her small tastes of his newest palm wine, and Zara would share stories from the books she'd read at school. Their laughter became a familiar melody in the village, their growing affection as visible as ripening fruit. Feel how your heart opens slightly as you read about this connection. Notice the warmth spreading through your chest, the small smile that might be forming on your lips. Love's beginning is always a beautiful mystery, isn't it? As days turned to weeks, their bond deepened. Then, on a night when the air was thick, with the scent of night-blooming jasmine and the moon hung low and full above them, they came together in the most intimate way. Under a blanket of stars, they shared whispered promises and tender touches, their bodies speaking a language older than words. Afterward, lying in Jabari's arms, Zara felt both completely new and entirely herself, as if she'd discovered a room in her heart she'd never known existed. Unknown to Zara, her parents had been making plans for her future. They had saved every spare coin, sacrificed small comforts, all to send their daughter to the village of Biku, a place known for its excellent skill training and vibrant marketplace. There, they believed, Zara could learn a trade that would secure her future and make her self-sufficient. When they shared their plans with her, Zara felt both honored by their sacrifice and terrified of leaving everything familiar behind. But she agreed, understanding the opportunity they were providing through their love. What she couldn't bring, herself to tell them what lodged in her throat like a stone each time she tried, was that she suspected she might be carrying Jabari's child. The signs were there, the subtle changes in her body, the unusual fatigue, the missed monthly bleeding, gathering. Her courage, Zara went to Jabari, hope fluttering in her chest like a caged bird. Surely he would stand by her. Surely their nights together had meant as much to him as they had to her. But when she told him of her suspicion, Jabari's face hardened, becoming a mask she didn't recognize. "It's not mine," he said flatly, his voice devoid of the warmth that had so captivated her. "You must have been with someone else." His rejection cut deeper than any physical wound could have. Zara stood before him, heart shattering into countless pieces, as the man she had given herself to turned away, leaving her alone with her fear and the growing life inside her. Take a moment to breathe deeply. Feel Zara's pain, as if it were a weight in your own chest. This moment of betrayal, of standing completely alone. Perhaps it resonates with experiences you've had or witnessed. Allow the emotion to flow through you as we continue, with nowhere else to turn and her departure. Date approaching rapidly, Zara made the journey to Biku with her secret heavily guarded. She arrived at the home of a distant aunt who lived near the marketplace, a kind woman who welcomed her with open arms and spicy stew, asking few questions about Zara's unusual quietness. As days passed and her condition became increasingly difficult. To hide, Zara grew desperate. She didn't want this child, not like this, not alone, not when her future had just begun to take shape. After asking discreet questions around the marketplace, she learned of a midwife known as Mama Sanyu, who was said to help women in difficult situations. With hope and fear battling in her heart, Zara made her way to the small hut at the edge of Biku, where Mama Sanyu practiced her craft. "Mama Sanyu," she said, voice trembling, "I'm not ready for this child. Is there anything you can do to help me?" The older woman studied Zara carefully, her eyes filled with both kindness and gravity. "My dear," she said finally, "it's too late for that kind of help. It would be too dangerous for you now." Zara's heart plummeted, despair washing over her like a cold wave. But then Mama Sanyu leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "If you truly don't want the child, there are people who would pay well for a healthy infant. Very well, indeed." The suggestion hit Zara like a physical blow. Sell her baby. The very idea seemed monstrous, unthinkable. Yet, as the initial shock faded, a new thought began to form, one that whispered of opportunity, of a way out, of financial freedom. how much? The question escaped her lips before she'd fully formed it in her mind. Mama Sanyu named a sum that made Zara's eyes widen. More money than her family had seen in years. Enough to change her life completely. Notice how your own reaction to this moment shifts. Perhaps you feel judgment, understanding, or a complex mixture of both. Whatever you feel, allow it to exist without resistance as we continue to follow Zara down this path she's choosing. As her pregnancy progressed, Zara's focus shifted entirely. She no longer thought about the skill training her parents had sent her to receive. Instead, her mind constantly calculated the money she would soon have, what she could buy, how she could live, the freedom it would bring. When the time came for the baby's birth, Zara endured the pain with a strange detachment. While her body worked to bring new life into the world, her mind remained fixed on what would come after. Mama Sanyu placed the newborn girl in Zara's arms, a tiny, perfect being with a tuft of dark hair and lungs that announced her arrival with impressive force. As Zara looked down at her daughter, she waited for the rush of love other mothers had described, that overwhelming connection that rewrote one's very existence. It never came. Instead, Zara felt impatience, a desire to complete the transaction and begin her new life. After feeding the infant from her own body, a mechanical act devoid of emotion, she handed her to Mama Sanyu, who took the child to the waiting buyers. The exchange was swift and businesslike. 500 gold coins were counted into Zara's palm, along with several pieces of jewelry whose craftsmanship spoke of their value. As the weight of the coins registered in her hand, Zara felt a surge of exhilaration that overshadowed any doubt or regret. This is better than any skill, she thought, watching the gold catch the light. This is power. And in that moment, a decision crystallized in her mind. This would be her path forward. Why spend years learning a trade when she could create wealth so much more quickly? Why struggle when ease was within her grasp? Zara's transformation was swift and complete. She sought out men deliberately now, with calculation rather than affection guiding her choices. When she fell pregnant again, this time by a man named Dakarai, she felt only satisfaction at the plan proceeding as intended. When Dakarai, like Jabari before him, denied responsibility and turned away, Zara felt nothing but relief. She had no desire for complications, for men who might claim rights to the children she now viewed as commodities. She returned to Mama Sanyu with news of her second pregnancy, practically dancing with anticipation. "Obila Zara," the midwife cautioned, her face lined with concern. "This path you're walking, it leads to places darker than you can imagine. Selling children isn't like selling goods at market. Each one is part of you, a piece of your soul exchanged for gold." But Zara, intoxicated by the prospect of more wealth, merely laughed. "My soul is doing just fine, Mama, and soon my purse will be even finer." 9 months later, she gave birth to a healthy boy whose cries she barely registered before handing him over to Mama Sanyu. This time, the payment was even greater, 2,000 gold coins and jewelry of such exquisite craftsmanship that it took her breath away. As you read these words, you might feel a heaviness settling over you, the weight of witnessing someone lose their way so completely. You might be wondering if redemption is possible, if there's a way back from such darkness. Keep reading and breathe slowly as the story continues to unfold. Over the years that followed, Zara perfected her system. She became known among a certain circle in Bhikkhu, men who wanted brief pleasure without commitment, buyers who sought healthy infants for various reasons. With each transaction completed, her wealth grew exponentially. 10 children she brought into the world, only to immediately send them away. 10 lives she created and discarded, each one adding to the mountain of gold and jewels she accumulated. She built a life of luxury in Bhikkhu, adorning herself with the finest clothes, the most exquisite jewelry, surrounding herself with beautiful objects that reflected her external success. Throughout this time, she sent money and gifts back to her parents in their village, creating a story of successful skill training and profitable business ventures. They were proud of their daughter, who had apparently found such success, never questioning the source of such abundant wealth. Can you see her now? Draped in silks, adorned with gold, her smile dazzling but her eyes increasingly empty? Can you feel how the weight of what she's done sits invisible on her shoulders, even as she stands taller, believing herself untouchable? After years in Biku, with wealth beyond her wildest childhood dreams secured, Zara decided it was time to return to her village. She packed her considerable treasures and made the journey home, anticipating the admiration and respect her new station would command. The woman who arrived at the village gates barely resembled the girl who had left. Zara's simple beauty had been transformed into something more calculated, her clothes expensive, her jewelry abundant, her very bearing speaking of wealth and power. At first, the villagers didn't recognize her, whispering among themselves about the identity of this elegant stranger. It was Lyra who first called out her name, rushing forward to embrace her old friend. "Zara, is it really you?" The reunion sparked celebration throughout the village. Everyone wanted to hear about Zara's experiences in Biku to understand how she had achieved such obvious success. Zara shared carefully crafted stories of hard work and good fortune, never revealing the true source of her wealth. With her gold, Zara built herself a magnificent house on the outskirts of the village, a structure that dwarfed all others with its grandeur. She also rebuilt her parents' humble home, transforming it into a comfortable dwelling that reflected their daughter's generosity and success. Men from the village and surrounding areas soon began to court her, drawn by her beauty and wealth. But Zara, accustomed to using men rather than partnering with them, rejected all suitors. She had created a life where she needed no one, and she intended to keep it that way. Think for a moment about the houses we build, not just of wood and stone, but the structures we create in our lives to protect ourselves, to project certain images to the world. What houses have you built? What do they reveal or conceal? As months passed in the village, something unexpected began to happen. Despite her wealth, despite the admiration of the villagers, despite having everything she had once thought would bring happiness, Zara felt an emptiness growing inside her, a void that no amount of gold could seem to fill. Her mother, observing her daughter's solitary existence with concern, gently suggested what was missing. "Zara," she said one evening as they sat in the garden of the new house she had provided them, "you have given us so much, and we are grateful. But a house needs more than walls and a roof to be a home. It needs family, children, love." The words struck a chord within Zara that resonated painfully. For the first time, she allowed herself to wonder about the children she had sold, where they were, who they had become, whether they were loved. These thoughts, once permitted entry, refused to leave, haunting her increasingly restless nights. Perhaps seeking to fill this growing emptiness, Zara finally opened herself to the possibility of marriage. Among her suitors was a man named Ade, wealthy in his own right, from a respected family with kind eyes that seemed to see past her carefully constructed facade to something of the girl she had once been. Their courtship was brief, their wedding elaborate. The entire village celebrated the union of two of its most prosperous members, and for a time, Zara believed she had finally found the missing piece that would complete her happiness. You might be feeling a sense of hope now, a desire to see redemption unfold. Notice that feeling, how it creates anticipation as you read. Your mind is already working to create possible paths forward for Zara. That's the natural human desire for resolution, for balance to be restored. 2 years into their marriage, the emptiness inside Zara had only grown. Despite trying to conceive, her body remained barren. No child took root in the womb that had once been so fertile. Ade's mother, impatient for grandchildren and suspicious of her daughter-in-law's past, became increasingly hostile. What kind of woman cannot give her husband children? She would demand, her voice sharp with accusation. What use is a barren wife? The pressure mounted until one day, unable to bear it any longer, Ade's mother publicly denounced Zara. You must leave this house, she declared. My son needs a wife who can continue our family line. Heartbroken and humiliated, Zara returned to her own house, the grandeur of which now seemed to mock her loneliness. The wealth she had sacrificed so much to obtain provided no comfort as she faced the consequences of her choices, as if the universe itself had decided the time for reckoning had come. Zara's past began to surface in unexpected ways. First came Jabari, the palm wine tapper who had fathered her first child. He appeared at her door one morning, eyes hard with suspicion. Where is my child, Zara? He demanded. The one you were carrying when you left our village. Fear clutching at her throat, Zara lied. I lost the baby, Jabari. A miscarriage took her from me. Though he left without further question, his visit was followed by others, Dakarai, and then more men, each seeking the children they had denied, but now, for reasons of their own, wished to claim. To each, Zara told the same lie, hoping to bury her past beneath layers of deception. But in a small village, secrets have a way of finding the light. A villager who had overheard one of these confrontations began to question Zara's story. This person had a cousin in Biku who, when asked, shared rumors of a beautiful young woman who had sold multiple babies to wealthy families seeking children. The truth, once revealed, spread through the village like wildfire. The men who had fathered Zara's children, now aware of what she had done, returned to her house, this time with a crowd of angry villagers behind them. Return our children to us, they demanded, their combined voices like thunder, or we will destroy everything you have built. Feel the tension building now, the inevitable collision of past actions with present reality. Your heart might be beating a little faster, your breath a little shallower. This moment of truth that awaits us all in different forms, with the weight of her actions finally crushing down upon her, Zara fled back to Biku, desperate to undo what could never truly be undone. She sought out Mama Sanyu, falling to her knees before the midwife who had enabled her descent. Please, she begged, tears streaming down her face for the first time since she couldn't remember when. Help me find my children. I need to bring them back. Mama Sanyu regarded her with eyes that held neither judgment nor forgiveness, only the weight of knowing this day would come. I warned you, child, she said softly. The path you chose leads only to this crossroad. Nevertheless, she gave Zara a list of names and locations, the families who had purchased her children. But prepare yourself, Mama Sanyu cautioned. These children have known other parents, other loves, and once you leave here today, do not return. I cannot help you. Further, armed with nothing but the list and desperate determination, Zara began a journey that took her across vast distances. At each destination, she faced rejection. Some denied knowing her, others refused outright to relinquish children they had, raised as their own. A few threatened to report her for even suggesting such a transaction had occurred. With each failure, something inside Zara broke further. She began to truly see what she had done, not just the selling of children, but the selling of herself, piece by piece, soul by soul, until there was nearly nothing left of the bright-eyed girl who had once been her village's pride. Take a deep breath now. Feel the weight of realization, of seeing oneself clearly perhaps for the first time. There's pain in such clarity, but also the beginning of something else, something that might, with time and great effort, lead toward healing. The full price paid. When Zara finally returned to her village, she came empty-handed, her quest a failure. The villagers, still angry but somewhat subdued by her obvious suffering, awaited her at the village center. "Where are our children?" the fathers demanded, though with less fire than before. "They're gone," Zara replied, her voice hollow. "They belong to others now. They have different names, different lives." The admission broke something in the collective consciousness of the village. The story of Zara, once their brightest star, now fallen so low, became a cautionary tale whispered to children around evening fires. Zara's father, unable to bear the shame of what his daughter had done, fell ill and died shortly after her. Returned. Her mother, already weakened by grief, followed him within weeks. Their deaths were yet more weights added to the unbearable burden Zara carried. In a gesture of atonement, Zara gave away all her remaining wealth, the grand house, the jewels, the gold coins she had once valued above all else. But the villagers wanted nothing from her, seeing her riches as tainted by the means of their acquisition. Understanding there was no place for her in the heart of the community any longer, Zara built a small, simple hut at the very edge of the village. There she lived alone, sustaining herself through small acts of service, helping in fields at harvest time, caring for the sick when extra hands were needed, teaching young children their letters when parents would allow it. Years past this, with Zara existing on the periphery of village life, present but apart, seen but rarely acknowledged. Her beauty faded, replaced by the quiet dignity of one who has faced her darkest self and survived the encounter. Sometimes on nights, when the moon hung full and bright above the village, Zara would sit outside her humble dwelling and look up at the stars. In those moments, she would think of 10 particular stars, imagining them as her children, grown now, living lives she would never know. She would whisper apologies to the night sky, hoping somehow the words might reach across the distance she had created. As our story draws to a close, notice how your breathing has deepened, how the rhythm of the narrative has become part of you. This tale of choices and consequences, of loss and the possibility, however distant, of redemption. The children of the village, initially warned to stay away from that woman, gradually became curious about the quiet figure who lived apart. Some of the bolder ones would venture near her hut, watching as she tended her small garden or drew water from the well. Zara never approached them, never tried to engage their attention. But sometimes, when a child was injured or lost, she would appear as if summoned, offering gentle assistance before disappearing back to her solitary existence. As these children grew, they began to understand Zara's story differently than their parents did. They saw not just the woman who had sold her babies, but the woman who had spent decades paying for that choice, the woman whose eyes held a wisdom born of terrible mistakes. Occasionally, one of the village elders would bring a young person to Zara's hut at twilight. "Tell them," the elder would say simply, and Zara would nod, understanding what was being asked. On these rare evenings, Zara would speak of her journey, not excusing her actions, but explaining how small choices had led to larger ones, how the pursuit of wealth had blinded her to what truly mattered, how the price of her soul had been paid one child at a time. "Remember," she would tell these young listeners, her voice soft but clear in the gathering darkness, "that true wealth cannot be held in your hands. It lives in your heart, in the connections you nurture, in the love you give freely, without expectation of return." And sometimes, though it became increasingly rare as years passed, a young woman would come to her alone, eyes downcast, speaking of fear and unwanted pregnancy, and desperate choices contemplated. To these women, Zara offered neither judgment nor easy solutions, but rather a hand to hold, an ear to listen, and the hard-won wisdom of one who had walked the darkest path and lived to tell of it. In this way, Zara's life, which had once seemed destined for brilliance before plunging into shadow, found a different kind of meaning. Not the meaning she had dreamed of as a girl with stardust in her eyes, but the quieter purpose of one who stands as both warning and witness, a human landmark on the landscape of choice and consequence. And as you finish reading this story, notice how it continues to resonate within you. Perhaps there are pieces of Zara's journey that speak to your own experiences, your own choices. What wisdom can you carry forward? What understanding have you gained? The story ends here, but its echoes continue, as all powerful stories do.